brother's plight, he also knew that he would not have hesitated to destroy Voldemort and/or Quirrell if he'd had the actual power to do so. He may have shown mercy to Draco Malfoy, but he'd spent way too much time talking with Nidhogg to be either squeamish or sentimental where the Dark Lord was concerned.
"No, son, you didn't,"
said James reassuringly to his favored son.
Quirrell was already dead by his master's hand, and even if things had played out differently, Quirrell would have died as soon as you-know-whose spirit abandoned his body. It appears that the possession was a voluntary one. Quirrell's will may have been overcome before it started, but by the time he got to Hogwarts, he was a willing host, and a willing host always dies when the possessing spirit departs. You're not responsible for Quirrell's death.
"Unfortunately,"
said Harry somewhat acerbically.
"you're not responsible for Voldemort's death either."
He turned to look at Dumbledore.
"I'm right, aren't I? He is still out there, if only in a spiritual form. How long will it take him to find another way to restore himself?"
Dumbledore sighed tiredly.
"We don't know, Harry. We are not even sure how he maintains his existence. There are several methods that allow the soul to remain tied to the material world even after death of the body, all of which utilize the darkest of magics. But we are not yet certain which method he used, always assuming he didn't invent some entirely new and monstrous technique completely unknown to us. I believe that it will take him some time to recover from the events of last Thursday night, but I cannot say how long it will be, nor can I predict by what means he will next seek to achieve physicality. We can only remain vigilant and do what we can to prepare. For my own part,"
he continued somewhat sadly,
"I can only offer you both my apologies. Our plan took great risks, but offered great rewards, the total destruction of Lord Voldemort at a time when he was still at his weakest. That the plan should have failed through a series of unfortunate and unforeseeable coincidences is profoundly disappointing. I hope you can both forgive me for my own lack of foresight."
Jim said that, of course, he would, while Harry nodded noncommittally.
"Now, my understanding is that Madame Pomfrey wishes to give each of you a final checkup, after which you will be released. Lunch is in 1 hour, and the leaving feast will be this evening.
He chuckled softly.
Who knows, there might be some special last-minute points to be granted."
His eyes twinkled at that, and Harry resolved to study over the summer and find out whether
"Twinkling eyes"
was a sign of some malicious but subtle psychic attack.
"If it's all the same, sir,"
said Harry, reclining with his eyes closed, as if he had grown weary.
"I'd prefer that Theo, Blaise and I not receive any points as a result of what happened, especially if the boy who lived and 3 other Gryffindors get points out of the same event. It would cause a lot of Slytherins to ask difficult questions and possibly complicate our position within the house. There are too many Slytherins still who were raised to have Death Eater sympathies, as I'm sure Jim and Lord Potter would happily agree."
If there was the tiniest amount of snideness in that last bit, neither Dumbledore nor Snape commented on it, and none of the others even noticed it.
"Also, I've rather firmly staked out the position in the house that Voldemort is dead with a capital D, and that Slytherin house should move on from his influence, and it would be better for us if there were no rumors floating around to the contrary. Certainly no rumors that we 3 helped prevent his resurrection."
Dumbledore glanced over at Snape, who nodded slightly.
"Very well, Harry. No points will be awarded to the involved Slytherin students."
"If the Slytherins aren't getting any points, then I don't think the Gryffindors should either,"
said Jim suddenly.
"It's not right for us to get points for getting confounded into a trap if the people who came to rescue us aren't rewarded for it."
"As you wish, Jim,"
said Dumbledore with a soft smile.
"Well, if that is all, I must be going. Much to do before the leaving feast. Although I would appreciate it, James, if you would join me in my office to discuss a few small matters."
The Auror nodded. After the adults had left, the 2 boys sat in silence, each looking over the cards and gifts they'd received from well-wishers. Jim looked thoughtful for a few minutes. Then he suddenly stiffened as a cold feeling entered the pit of his stomach. He sat up and looked over at Harry.
Why did you refuse house points?
He asked in a clipped tone. Harry looked over at in surprise. I already explained that.
I know you did, and it made sense. That doesn't mean it's the real reason.
Harry barked out a surprised laugh.
You're improving, little brother. One day you might even see through one of my plots as it's unfolding instead of afterwards. Slytherin won the Quidditch Cup. With the addition of those points, and assuming nothing else changed over the weekend while we were unconscious, Slytherin now leads Gryffindor in the House Cup race by at least 30 points. There were 3 Slytherins and 4 Gryffindors involved in last Thursday's monkey business, so if the headmaster gave all 7 of us the same number of points and the per-person award was more than 30, which seems reasonable for fighting Voldemort himself, Dumbledore's last-minute award might have put Gryffindor in the lead. And you just assumed that if you declined to accept house points, I would automatically do the same. Of course, you're a Gryffindor.
Jim slammed his head back into his pillow, fuming. I hate Slytherins so much.
So I've heard,
said Harry smugly as he opened up another cauldron cake. Soon after, James and Dumbledore were seated in the headmaster's office. James noticed that his old mentor's eyes were decidedly not twinkling.
What would you like to talk about, Albus?
He asked somewhat tightly.
James, this has to stop. Thus far, I have respected your legal authority over Harry as his head of house, even after learning how flagrantly you have abused that authority over the past 10 years. Moreover, the laws of the Wizengamot have thus far compelled me to do so, despite my increasing apprehension at the rift between Harry and the rest of your family. In any case, Harry's decision to have me recuse myself from any legal proceedings involving him has largely made the matter moot. That said, he is my student, one for whom I have failed to fulfill my obligations as headmaster. I can no longer condone what Severus rightly describes as senseless antagonism towards the boy.
James bristled.
I'm afraid I must reject that characterization, sir. Which part? You don't recognize it as antagonism, or you actually claim that there's some sense to it? With respect, Albus, you know that as head of House Potter, my authority over Harry's upbringing trumps your authority as headmaster. And so long as I fulfill my obligations to my heir presumptive, neither you nor anyone else has any business questioning any of my parental decisions.
The room got noticeably colder at that, and Potter had to struggle to maintain eye contact with Dumbledore, who was now giving him the look. Not the I'm disappointed look he'd used on the Marauders when they'd exceeded his patience for pranks, but rather the look, the one that let everyone know the dotty old man had left the building and the defeater of Grindelwald had taken his place, the one James had only ever seen him use when confronting Death Eaters and Voldemort himself. Potter was stunned to realize that Dumbledore might actually now consider him to be an enemy due to his treatment of Harry.
I am well aware of my stringent limitations as headmaster where Wizengamot lords and their heirs are concerned, Lord Potter. They are the same limitations that your peer, Lord Tiberius Not, uses to sanctify his conduct as well.
James was shocked to be compared to the notorious Death Eater. It felt like a slap to the face.
However, it occurs to me that those limitations do not apply when I am acting in my capacity as Chief Warlock. Thus far, I have acquiesced to Harry's motion to recuse because, frankly, I agreed that there is a conflict of interest. After all, it was my mistake which led to his erroneously being declared a squib, and it was my recommendation that you integrate him as quickly as possible into Muggle society that led to his placement with the Dursleys. Although I certainly never anticipated that you would ignore the boy completely for 10 years without making the slightest inquiries into his health. We did place protections,
said James testily.
I bought a house across the street for Arabella Figg to live in so she could watch over the boy and let us know if anything was wrong.
Dumbledore gave him the look again.
Well, James, that worked out splendidly, didn't it? Regardless, recusal is generally at the Chief Warlock's discretion. If I reverse my prior decision on that topic, Harry's solicitor would need to bring the matter before the entire Wisengamot in order to force me to recuse myself, though she may be elect not to do so once it becomes clear that I am inclined to rule in the boy's favor.
Potter's eyes widened. You wouldn't,
I assure you, Lord Potter,
said Dumbledore coldly.
that I have seen more than enough in the past year to support a finding that you have been an unfit guardian to the heir presumptive of your house. As such, it is within my legal power as Chief Warlock to revoke your authority over Harry completely and appoint a custodial guardian until he comes of age. I imagine Augusta Longbottom will be delighted to accept Harry into her household.
Then he smiled, though there was still no twinkle in his eyes.
In fact, Harry seems remarkably mature for his age. Don't you agree? I can easily see myself amenable to a petition for emancipation for Harry as early as, say, 13. Emancipation followed swiftly by elevation from heir presumptive to heir apparent. No, you.
James shot up out of his chair as he shouted at the old men, who sat unmoved.
Then give me a reason not to. Give me some sign that you can finally be a decent father to your son.
James looked around for a moment as if lost. Then he sat back down again slowly as the energy drained out of him. I can't. It's too late. My last chance to be Harry's father ended the night he was sorted.
But why? I admit I was concerned at first when Harry was sorted into Slytherin House, but the past year has erased nearly all of my reservations. He hasn't been dragged into the dark by the other Slytherins as I feared. If anything, he is pulling them back into the light. He knowingly and willingly went to face Voldemort without any of the expectations of Jim's magical protections in order to save his Gryffindor friends, and the sons of Tiberius Nott and Serena Zabini willingly accompanied him.
Dumbledore sighed.
James, I am committed to spending the last years of my life helping Jim defeat Voldemort, a daunting, seemingly impossible task. But those difficulties are nothing compared to the task of breaking the hold that centuries of pureblood ideology and reckless bigotry have held over Slytherin House, over 1/4 of our student body. I never dared dream that I would live to see a Slytherin like Harry, who brings together the children of Death Eaters and the children of Muggles. I never dared to hope that such a thing was even possible.
With that, Dumbledore studied James's face and noticed that he had only become more distraught.
And yet, for some reason, that thought horrifies you.
He shook his head.
I don't understand, James. As a student, you were kind and friendly, if a little rambunctious, to everyone save those of Salazar's house to whom you showed relentless hatred, like your father before you, like his father before him. Why, James? Why is it so unthinkable for a Potter to not only join Slytherin House, but to excel and to bring forth its best qualities rather than its worst?
James closed his eyes and leaned his head back, as if beaten down by his mentor's words. Finally, he spoke in flat, broken voice. I'll need you to swear an unbreakable vow.
What?
Dumbledore asked, confused at the non sequitur.
You ask me a question. I'll say this for now. My antagonism towards Harry is not senseless. It is purposeful. If you want to know what that purpose is, I'll need you to swear an unbreakable vow of secrecy to never reveal it.
Dumbledore stared at his former student and now his young friend for a long time. Then he pulled out his wand slowly and took the oath Potter demanded. Several minutes later, most of the paintings of former headmasters which adorned Albus Dumbledore's office looked on in shock and surprise. In the 40 years that the man had served as headmaster of Hogwarts, none of them had ever heard the man swear so loudly or profanely.